Okay, so you heard chipmunk on the other end, right? Yeah. Okay, I think my stream kind of picks up my mics for some reason. Yeah, I can mute that. Yeah. Okay, cool. phone instead of my messages. Perfect. Now let's make the phone call, and in order to do that, we're gonna call our file, which is called make a call. Okay, so you can see it made an HTTP request with my authentication token. I just got the call. Okay, so I just received a phone call, and the chipmunk voice greeted me and told me basically he used text to speech to do the text I just sent it to back to me. You can customize a bunch of things about this. You can have speak synthesis markup language, which basically tells you how to enunciate different numbers or different words, or how to treat digits, like digits inside the number as digits with a pause and stuff like that. You can use a different voice name. We have a bunch of voices available for different languages. You can go on our Nexmo developer platform and look for that, for example, for voice names, and you can see all the available voice names and the languages and their genders in there, and you can use any of those. So this was how to make a phone call. We used the Nexmo Node library in order to make a phone call. Let's see what happens when we want to receive a call. So when we want to receive a call, it's basically we're creating an express server because we need the webhooks for those answer URL and event URL. So what we're gonna do is on get we're implementing the answer URL, and that basically says, look, this is the NCCO I want you to serve when someone calls this Nexmo number, and it's a simple NCCO that says the action is talk and thanks for calling Alex. And then when you're posting on inbound, that's our event URL, and that's where Nexmo sends events about the stuff that happens in a conversation. We're gonna see what happens when we actually do that. Let's see if our ngrok is still running. Perfect. Let's go to the application we just created though and associate the Nexmo number I have with the application. So my application ID was something with 20. Okay. So we're gonna go to the dashboard. You can probably see my application in my list here somewhere, but the fact that I have maybe like 50 or 60 applications isn't helping right now. So we're gonna go to numbers, and then for my Nexmo number, the one I used for SMS, we're gonna use the same one. So there's a voice section that says I want this. It usually goes like this, and it says I want to forward this number to an application, and then I get to select an application ID. I guess this is the one. I'm sorry. So what this does is it tells my number whenever someone wants to interact with it, go to this application and use the answer URL and the event URL to figure out what to do next with your call. So let's see what happens when I try to call the Nexmo number. Let's first start the server. So we're gonna run this. So it's basically listening on port 3000, and whenever the call starts, I should get all the events in here. They should be able to see all the events coming in. Okay, so I just called my number. And I got the text speech action that said thank you for calling Alex. Now, as you can see, all the events that happen in the conversation in the phone call are being dumped here, which is basically I got the ringing event. Then I got the call started event because I answered the call, and I get a bunch of information about the numbers, how much it cost me per minute, and stuff like that. And then I got the completed a completed event at the end of it with all the information about the conversation that just happened. So this is a fairly simple use case for calling into a Nexmo number. Let's see what else can we do with it. So what happens if I want to connect to phones, or better yet, what happens if I want to connect a phone to a browser? So we have WebSocket support on our calls. I've got this little project from our community GitHub account downloaded here. It's called WS Phone, as in WebSocket Phone. You can go and so you can go basically clone this and play around with it. What it does, it shows you a user interface for calling a number. It basically tells you to call a number and enter a PIN code. You'll have to, in order to make this work, you'll have to either npm install after you clone or yard install, both of them work, and you're gonna have to export an inbound number and then run the node application. But before you do that, you're gonna have to have your Nexmo number associated with an application that has very specific endpoints. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new application and change my endpoints for that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so one of the common use cases are, well, what happens when you wanna interact with the call? For example, a few of our customers use it for sentiment analysis. So what they do is they connect the phone call to a WebSocket, and then the WebSocket gets connected to something like IBM Watson, and they do real-time sentiment analysis on the call. So whenever you call a customer, right, and you want to figure out if he's happy with you or if he's angry with you, that's one of the use cases. So Nexmo right now has, for example, text to speech, but the API doesn't have speech to text. So you get a recording at the end of your call. If you want to record a call, you get a recording, which is an audio file. What happens if you want to have a transcript of your call? So you have to connect the call to a WebSocket, and then via the WebSocket connect that to some sort of Google speech to text engine that gives you the transcript of your conversation. And Google is actually really good at this because it kind of figures out context from the audio and stuff like that. So you can actually have a pretty accurate transcript of your phone call instead of having to listen to it. You can just look through the text. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm gonna go and create a different application. Let's just close this one. Okay, so I just created another application. I should get an application ID back. Now I'm gonna go to my Nextmo dashboard. I'm gonna edit my number to associate it with a different application. So, oh, the new application was FB22. Okay, so this is my new application. I'm gonna use that as my new application to interact with this number. Now I need to set up an inbound number in order for this to work, and this is gonna get displayed on my screen. And then I can just run node and my cool. So this is listening on port 3000 now. If I go into my browser, into the ngrok URL, so what this does is I can see myself talking in there and the audio being represented. It instructs me to call this number and enter a PIN when prompted. So I'm gonna just go ahead and do that. Okay, so now I'm connected to my okay, I just got feedback and lots of it. Okay, better with the feedback now. So you can see the audio from my microphone and then the audio from the voice call being represented there, and that means I just connected my phone to a browser. We're gonna take a look. I'm gonna close that because that's a lot of feedback. We're gonna take a look at how I did that, and the way I did this is, so on the answer URL, I'm actually instructing the call to talk and say enter that code in your screen now, and then I'm accepting user input. So basically, you can use the call to accept user input from this input URL I just constructed here, and it says you have 10 seconds to do it, and you can only input 4 digits. And after this happened, after the user put in the PIN code, I'm just basically talking back saying I'm connecting you, and then I proceed to connecting the call to an endpoint, which is of type WebSocket and has this WebSocket URL. And there's the content type is audio and the rate is 16 Hertz. You can play around with the rate in the browser later on. My demo actually takes the 16K rate and converts it to 44K in the browser, so I can do a better visualization of it. If your PIN code wasn't correct, I'm gonna say I couldn't find a matching call for you, sorry, and that's it. Now this is the math about generating the PIN number, which is basically not that complex, and then I have to have a WebSocket server on, and on connecting, I'm basically sending a bunch of stuff into the WebSocket. Whenever I get a message, I proxy that back to the browser so I can update it on the screen. I have this little index.html here that basically takes the WebSocket audio and the microphone audio from my browser and puts them in a canvas, and that's it. Instead of connecting it to your browser and putting it on screen, you can connect it to something like something like IBM Watson, or we have something called the Lex connector. So if you want to interact with Alexa right now, you usually use an Alexa device, right? What happens if you don't have an Alexa device? You can just use your phone and make a phone call to Alexa and talk to Alexa on the phone instead of using your device, which is a different use case for WebSockets, I guess. Okay, I think I'm done with the demo part of this. If you have any questions for me, now would be a good time. Okay, so I saw. I think one of my favorites was connecting the phone call to a WebSocket, and then using that WebSocket to figure out basically if your customer is angry. And the second your customer is angry, you transfer him to a manager or someone in charge. There's been some other cool hacks in there. I think I've seen SMS interaction with at the one in San Jose. I think I saw SMS interaction with QuickBooks using your phone as an interface to interact with with your account instead of actually having to open up a browser. I think I've seen it used as a fallback, so different levels of escalation. Basically, your invoice is due, you're gonna send out an SMS. Your invoice is late, you're gonna make a phone call because, well, you can't really ignore, you can ignore SMS, but having a phone call kind of increases the urgency of that. And stuff like that. I personally want to see some cool hacks around WebSockets. It's a pretty interesting technology. It's really versatile. You can basically connect the WebSocket to a bunch of different services out there online. I think I saw something about ordering your your next item via voice, via Alexa or something like that. I personally want to see more around WebSockets this time around. So I think you need to implement the payment processing on your server. So you can use Nexmo as an input device for that, but then you have to process the payment with something like Stripe or your own payment processor or stuff like that. Yeah. Yes, we're gonna give out any prizes. We're gonna give out prizes. We're kind of split in the team right now about what we're gonna give as prizes. I personally enjoyed the BB9Es we gave out in San Jose. We're looking at some other stuff right now. I don't think there's a final decision yet, but I'm gonna tweet out about it as soon as I know for sure what prizes we're gonna give out this time. But definitely we're bringing prizes. Yes, this was in no way a shameless plug to get more Twitter followers. No, no, no. Yeah. I think so. There's a lot of assistants out there right now. I think Microsoft just announced that they're going to release their own. Basically, if you don't have the device, it's not really easy to interact with them. But if you can do it from a phone, if you can make it easy for users to interact from a phone instead of having to create that logic in your application, that's even easier. So I think they used actions on Google to basically have a conversation over the phone without them actually having to be in the conversation. So as a user, as a client, basically, you could interact with your with the business without the business actually having to hire more people to scale their customer support and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that saves small businesses a lot of time, and it would make customers happy because so what happens for me when I interact with the business is I basically have to either wait for like 3 minutes for an operator to be available, or I just give up in the process, and I get frustrated about it. But if I had like something like Alexa responding back with the status, and I can interact with that. That would keep me a happy customer. The business would get more revenue basically, and it would help out everyone around. Okay, so Nextmo just released a developer preview for our in-app messaging, which basically allows you to create a conversation with your user. One of the problems businesses have is, well, whenever you talk to a business, for example, when I call my bank, as I interact with it via the phone, via web chat, on the phone, there's multiple people, and I have to state my problem over and over again. And that becomes frustrating because every new person I interact with, I have to spend like 3 minutes explaining what my problem is. This in-app messaging feature allows you to have one conversation with the business that basically solves the problem of having to repeat the problem statement all over again. Whoever joins the conversation can see what happened in the conversation, so it makes it easier to solve your problem and more efficient. If you go to our blog, yeah, so yeah. So yeah, exactly. We're basically stitching together pieces of a conversation. If you go to our blog, you can see the announcement about introducing Nextmo in-app messaging, and somewhere at the bottom of it, there's a link for you to sign up and request access into the developer preview. I actually happen to manage that alongside with Chris and Eric from my team. So if you want to sign up for that and give it a spin, we'll be more than happy to listen for any feedback you've got. It's really valuable for us, especially in this stage of development, to get as many developers to test it out, to try it out, and to give us feedback back. Yes, definitely. I'm gonna be there. I can give them. So right now we have SDKs for Android, iOS, and JavaScript. I'm more of a JavaScript guy, so if they choose to do it in JavaScript, I'm there to help out. We have docs for Android and iOS as well. But I'd be really happy if people jumped in on this, tried it out, and gave us feedback after the hackathon. Yeah. just sign up for this. If it takes more than like a couple of hours to get access, just ping me directly on Twitter. My I have open DM, so just ping me there. I know, another shameless plug for Twitter. Just if you want to sign up for this and test it out before the hackathon or at the hackathon, we're gonna be around to help you out. So yeah, basically, it's an automated email that goes back to them. Yes, you should definitely do this in advance, because it takes just a little bit of time to sign up. Sadly, no. That was my phone going off. It's not some dead Nexmo code, but it's okay. Thank you.